In Pranayama Shavasana. Do you see my setup? We're starting in Pranayama Shavasana. And if you can give me a side view, that will be most helpful for me. Okay, so once you have your setup, then sit in front of your bolster. Lengthen the buttocks forward as you come down to your elbows, and then lie down on your back. Stretch your legs out. Start with your legs together. Start with your legs together. Look up and see that the big toes, the navel, and the nose are all in one line. And then bring your head back down. Grip the sides of the mat. See how I'm gripping the sides of the mat. And push the mat downward toward the feet so that you drag the skin of the back also downward and then the skin of the front body upward. Now, release your legs so that the little toes come toward the floor, and then release your palms, keeping the skin of the back moving up to the head, moving downward, the skin of the front moving upwards, and then turn your palms up. Have your hands just a little bit wider than your mat. First, reach your arms straight so that the elbows are off the floor, just the fingernails on the floor right now. Extend your arms down toward your feet, closer to your, like the little fingers grazing the mat, okay? So that the movement of the shoulders is downward. Then, soften your palms, soften your elbows, soften your fingers. As you soften your fingers, pay special attention to your thumb and see that the thumb is not slaying outwards, but that the thumb joint is soft and the thumb is dropping softly toward the index finger. Roll the upper arm bones out such that the hands can balance on the middle knuckle on the back of the hand. The wrist doesn't want to quite come toward the floor, but can you lengthen the knuckles away from the wrist so that the back of the hand and the back of the wrist come closer to the floor, and then soften the fingers. Rest here. I'm coming out so I can watch you. See that the outer thighs are soft, outer shins releasing toward the floor, little toes releasing toward the floor now. Have a sense of the big toes, the weight of the big toes spreading toward the little toes. Hopefully the bolster is creating a situation such that the shoulders can drop down gravitationally toward the floor. And the collarbones can spread and the top of the chest can spread. Be in Shavasana here, so no effort. Once you have set yourself up for optimal benefit, then rest. Don't try to do anything here yet. Just make sure that everything is soft. Everything is soft, but still there's a lift because of the bolster, by virtue of the bolster, by virtue of your setup. There's still a direction that you are cultivating, a sense of direction that you are cultivating, a sense of lift that you're cultivating. So maintain all of that, but quiet your mind, quiet your senses, quiet the small muscles around the eyes, widen across the forehead, soften the temples, soften the jaw. All of that should be very soft. and observe the normal breath. Observe the resting breath. Pranayama always starts with breath observation. So we never want to charge in and start moving things around. We always want to, especially with pranayama, sensitize ourselves first. Sensitize ourselves, notice what's happening, notice the conditions of the day. So it's like the weather. Our bodies are always changing. The state of our breath is always changing. So be with that for a few minutes and just observe the weather, so to speak. Observe the state of the body, the state of the breath, the state of the mind today. Different from yesterday. And even different from moment to moment. So be with that. Be observant, be sensitive. Don't try to change anything, not to judge anything. It's not like it's a good breath or a bad breath, a good body or a bad body, or a good mind or a bad mind. It's none of that. It's all about becoming more sensitive, more observant, and not about going in and being a reformer right off the bat. First, you have to understand the lay of the land. You have to understand the situation. So last week we talked about what Gita Iyengar pointed out about the three different aspects of the prana. Gita said, observe the shape of the prana, the direction of the prana, and the storage of the prana. So the shape of the prana, the life force, the vitality, has a particular shape in everything that we do, in every position that we're in. The energy body, the life force is also shaping, is being shaped, and is also shaping. And then the direction of the prana. So the prana is always moving. And so in which direction is it moving? So it's like a river. So observe in what direction it's moving. And then the storage, this is a very interesting concept, that there are places that carry, that store, that keep prana more than others. And so in particular, Gita points out the armpit chest. The armpit chest is a place where prana is stored. So now as we begin to work with the breath, allow the breath to become a little slower, a little softer. And as the breath becomes a little slower, a little softer, then it will naturally start to move into the chest region. The bolster is such that the chest is lifted, getting a little extra boost to encourage the flow of the prana. So now we're consciously drawing the prana up into the chest region. So the flow of the prana, the direction of the prana is upward into the chest region and then back down into the abdominal region as you exhale. So observe that sense of direction of the prana as you develop the Ujjayi. Allow the Ujjayi to develop slowly. So once again, you're not charging it and saying, okay, Ujjayi right off the bat. No, let it develop over the series of many breaths. Slow, soft inhale, slow, soft exhale. And the difference between the resting breath and the Ujjayi breath, to remind you is that the Ujjayi breath is going to be drawn up into the chest region, slight lift of the abdomen up and back so as to pull the breath up into the rib cage region. And then slowly exhaling so that the chest stays lifted until the very end of the exhale, when the rib cage is allowed to go back to its original shape and size. So cultivating the Ujjayi for a couple more minutes. Observing the flow of the prana, observing the shape of the prana, and the storage of the prana. So the storage of the prana, as you continue your Ujjayi cycles, pulling the breath up, filling the chest region, and then Gita says we have storage tanks for the prana at the armpit chest, at the sides of the chest near the armpits. So it corresponds to the lymph nodes, if you're looking at it from an anatomical physiological level, corresponds with the lymph nodes in that armpit region. Even though the prana is not exactly, it's not the same as lymph, it's not the same as blood, but it's analogous. It's the blood and lymph can be carriers of prana. The blood and lymph can be vehicles for the life force, which is much more subtle than blood or lymph. So do a few more cycles of Ujjayi here. And after this last cycle, then return to normal breathing. We do Ujjayi for just short periods at a time. We don't do it all day long. A little bit goes a long way. It's kind of like a homeopathic remedy. You just need a little bit of it to enliven you and to nourish the whole body. If you do it all day long, then physiologically it's no longer beneficial. So returning to normal breathing. All right, now fold your hands in, bend your legs, and roll to your side. And sit up. I would like to do some pranayama on the chair this morning. So get yourself a chair, all right? Put a blanket on the chair. If you're very tall, it might be better to use a bolster. The goal of the blanket is to get very tall and have a very much lifted spine. So I'm sitting on the edge of the chair. And the knees are a little lower than the hips. Okay, so the knees a little lower than the hips, sitting on enough height so that the legs can flow downward. feet are planted hip width. Okay, now lean forward and pull the buttock flesh back so that you can be right on the center of the sitting bones. Feel the sides of the hips and see that the sides of the hips are level with the floor. Okay, so now tilting forward, not rolling back, but the sides of the hips level. Now hold the sides of the chair and then roll your shoulders back. Place your knees directly over your ankles, not to have your knees coming in or out, but have your knees directly over your ankles. Push your hands down and spread the chest open. Roll your shoulders back. So we're using the chair today to make sure that we can really get maximum lift of the spine. So the prana, when we're talking about the direction of the prana, the flow of the prana, if the spine is even a little bit dropped, then the prana is also dropping. So use the hands on the sides of the chair to get that maximum lift of the chest. Make sure that you're not pushing your bottom ribs forward, but that the bottom ribs are coming down toward the pelvic rim so that the kidney band is wide and the diaphragm is moving from front to back. If I have my ribs forward, then the diaphragm is being pushed forward, and that is not conducive to pranayama, nor the quietness of the mind. Now, you can stay here for a moment while I explain what we're doing today. So we're going to breathe up through a cone shape. So I'm picturing the point of the cone in the pit of my abdomen, and then the cone getting wider and wider as it comes all the way up to the corners of the shoulders. So a narrow breath and then widening all the way up to the top chest. Okay, so we're going to, and then exhaling, going back down through that cone shape. All right, so we'll do some Ujjayi cycles using that image and creating that shape of the prana according to the cone. All right, so pressing the hands down, roll the shoulders back, floating ribs down, now doing back, thighs lengthening downward toward the knees, knees lengthening downward through the shins into the floor, heels firm on the floor. Now, bring your head up to pull the cervical spine in, then bring your chin down. As you bring your chin down, lift the chest higher to meet the chin. Keep the shoulders back. And then from here, exhale completely. You'll have your glasses off. I have my glasses on so that I can watch you. You'll have your glasses off. Exhale completely. From the pit of the abdomen, inhale up from that point and draw the breath up into the top of the chest, sides of the chest, all the way up to the collarbones, corners of the shoulders in a cone shape, three-dimensional cone. And then exhale slowly back down into that point. So the current of the prana is going up on the inhale, down on the exhale, and then resting breath or two, and repeat. Exhale completely. Shoulders back. Inhale, up through the cone. Start from that little point, and then feel the breath coming all the way up, widening at its widest at the armpit and collarbones, and then exhale when you're ready. Resting breath or two, if you need. Exhale completely. Do another round. Inhale, up from that point, draw up. Feel that tubular nature of the breath getting wider, the tube getting wider and wider, three-dimensionally, as you expanding, as you draw the breath all the way up. At the top of the inhale, now turn the corner and exhale. Go slowly, seeping down into that cone. Notice how as you complete the exhale, the breath is narrow. The breath is pointed and narrow. Okay, do 3 more cycles on your own. 3 more cycles of Ujjayi, Abhyantara, Bahya, Bahya, Abhyantara, Ujjayi from the seated position, from the chair. Take resting breaths in between if you need. Make sure your knees are not splaying nor squeezing. See that the knees are directly over the heels. So there's a way in which we are drawing up the prana from the earth through our legs into the trunk, into the heart and lungs. So let your legs be stable. Also, the spine will drop if we completely let go of the use of the limbs. The spine will drop. So we're using the limbs to enliven the spine today. All right, so after you finish your 3 cycles, then keep your eyes closed but bring your chin up. And sit quietly. You can rest your hands on your lap also when you're done. Okay. So now you can put your chair aside, come on up to your feet, put your chair aside, keep your blanket. If you have a total of 3 blankets, that will be very helpful for this last little bit. So let's have a blanket coming back to the bolster. Blankets on either side. We're going to do Supta Baddha Konasana for a few minutes. Normally we would strap, but don't strap today because after this, then you're going to take regular Shavasana. All right? So the feet together in Baddha Konasana, thighs supported. Then scoot the buttocks forward, lie down onto your bolster. Thighs are resting on the bolster. This time, take the arms out in line with your shoulders like this. Extend through the fingertips. And then broadening across the chest, then release the elbows down, soften the palms, arms wide. Okay, now settle in here. And this time, we're going to do a series of breaths with the point of the cone at the pit of the throat, and then opening downward like this, okay, out into the corners of the knees. We'll do a series of Bahya, Bahya, Ujjayi, Ujjayi exhales, widening out. There's still a lift of the abdomen, so it's not like dumping the abdomen into the pelvic floor. There's still a lift of the abdomen, but the prana, the shape of the prana, is going to go out this way. Okay, so I'll talk you through the first few cycles. Then you'll be on your own. First, rest, settle into the pose. Make sure there's no strain. Make sure you have adequate support under your thighs. Exhale completely. From the width of your knees, inhale up, narrowing into the pit of the throat. Find the point of the cone at the pit of the throat. And then slow, soft exhale, seeping the breath out and letting it widen as you get toward the end of the exhale. Widen out as wide as the knees. And if you can do continuous cycles, go ahead and do continuous cycles. Otherwise, take resting breaths in between. So inhaling up to the point at the pit of the throat. And then exhaling nice and wide, like you're exhaling into an ocean. Let the exhale be slow. In other words, the abdomen still has to lift up and back. Continue in this manner. Inhaling, narrowing up into the pit of the throat, and then exhaling wide, all the way out to the knees. Controlling the exhale, controlling the inhale through the lift of the abdomen. But see if you can discern the shape of the prana, the movement of the prana, and then the storage of the prana. We also have storage of the prana in the groins, not just in the armpits, but another place where we tend to store prana is in the groin region. And also a place where lymph nodes are concentrated. And that groin region is where we join the metabolic body with the movement body, the limbs with the trunk, the lower limbs with the trunk. And also this place in the lower abdominal region where we have reproductive organs, intestines, colon, the uterus, ovaries, so much importance of bladder, all of that going on in the lower abdominal region, which is so important for our health. So continue in this manner. And now, one more cycle. One more cycle. Finish up. Then return to normal breathing. Rest your hands. After you're finished, rest your hands on your abdomen. And bring your knees up. Stretch your legs straight. You can pull the blankets in to touch your thighs with your legs straight, and then let the feet roll out. And the thighs will be caught by the blanket. All right? And take Shavasana here. Just rest now. Let the breath return to normal. Don't do anything special with the breath. Just let the breath be normal now. Abdomen effortlessly rising and falling with the breath. Release the front brain to the back brain. Soften the temples. I'm going to sign out now, and I'll end the meeting, but you can stay as long as you want. You can stay as long as you want. You don't have to rush out. Okay? Thank you for coming, and good to see you, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Don't forget the videos are posted on the YouTube channel for members, all right? Take care.